these birds touch down en masse on a little 150-acre bass lake. So, counted upwards of 300 loons. That's a once in a lifetime. Now, it's not unusual to get 50 or more on Ladue Reservoir when they're coming through. But when they're, you know, if you listen, if you watch for a while, you may get to hear that call of the loon. That is such a part, so primal, that's such a part of the North Country experience. So, yeah. Yeah, how about that? You know? But we did have, now there's a situation where loons and grebes, if you're familiar with another little diving bird, can get in trouble if they're on our lakes and we get a rapid drop in temperature and things start to ice up real quick. Because these birds need long runways to scramble along the surface of the water to get airborne. And if the temperature is dropping and it's freezing over, they get in big trouble. They get trapped in or under the ice. So, okay, all right. Going back to December of 2013, got the call. I don't know if you, there, all right. You know Jerry Tavergia, been working Park District a long time, good old Jerry, he gave us the call, he said, hey, there's a loon out here, and it's on the lake, the lake's freezing over, it's just in this little puddle of open water. So John Kolar, chief naturalist, and I went to Best Lake and kind of looked at the situation, and I don't live but less than a mile from there, and I just went home and got my canoe. And so we called the rangers, we drove around the backside of the lake and put the canoe on there. Now, then the gulls had gathered around. I don't know if they were cheering or jeering. So we put the canoe on the ice. The rangers tied a rope so they could pull me back in. The ladder was there. You know, ladders great an ice rescue to distribute body weight if I fell out of the canoe or whatever. Except the ice was too thin. It really didn't work out for the ladder. But anyway, I had, you know, it was useless. You couldn't paddle because of the ice. The ice is about a half-inch thick. So I had to kind of, you know, thrust my body forward and scoot across the ice till we got out to where the loon was. So the loon would repeatedly dive, and when it came up, I was able finally to net it, and they pulled me back in. We had the loon, and you know, notice it doesn't look like what you picture a loon like. It's in its winter plumage. And so we had it. Now these birds are big, and they're heavy too. They're heavy because they're solid bone, unlike other birds that are hollow bone. They're solid bone. This helps make be a good diver. And so we got it. We took it to the Wildlife Center, Penitentiary Glen, and they pumped it full of nutrients because it's kind of exhausted. And then was able to release it shortly after down on frozen Lake Erie. So yeah, it's a success story. a lot of success stories, they're just not. It's a lot of times, time we get to a bird that's been flown into a vehicle or into a window, they're too far gone, and the time we get to them, but we help where we can. So, all right. Yeah. The winter solstice candlelight walk we did for many years since the beginning of my time at Geauga Park District, where we present the roots of our holiday traditions that are all rooted in the winter solstice, and hence all the light, everything, this light and that light, the lights. And so did this thing with Northern Barbarians, where I think it was the bonfires. They would light bonfires. So, and the storyline goes, now see, I had the gentleman with me there, George Collins. I don't know if anybody remember George, but George was a retired astronomy professor and had the great gift of oratory, and he would stick very close to Norse mythology. You know, I was Loki, the god of fire, he was Odin, and we would explain, you know, the deal was the frost giants would come and steal the sun every year, and then they would light bonfires to get the frost giant to relinquish the sun and bring back the longer days and health and warmth and all that in the new year. So George, from his Boy Scout days, had all these camporee, jamboree methods, magical methods of lighting fires that didn't involve going up and lighting it with a match or something. You know, you pull a string and fire with light, you know, and they never worked. So I always had to keep a torch handy, you know, and I would light and then wave it around for effect, and then, you know, we had the fire all soaked in kerosene, ready to go. I mean, I'd have people howling like wolves to defy the frost giants and all this. Now, in the earlier years of doing this, I had coworkers, Mike, and and I had the husbands of the naturalists there, you know, and some of their older kids, those that have older kids, but and we would work in some of the whatever was going on in popular culture at that time. I remember, what year was it where they had the brilliant idea of having free beer at Browns game? When they played the Minnesota Vikings, and the fans turned rude and were pelting the Vikings with beer bottles. Terrible. And so that year I was pelted with beer bottles, and I'm glad I had a shield. Of course, they were Miller, they were plastic, I think. But anyway, there was now other times. See, we remember this, Gary, when we all of us barbarians rushed the crowd and stopped just short of them, and then demanded, "What's in your wall?" We couldn't do this straight without George's influence and guidance. There, we were left to it. Each 16 year had to change up the storyline so it wouldn't be the same, but put a new twist on it. Well, that led us kind of far astray sometimes. But we stuck to the main storyline, and thank goodness in the later years I had as my foil as the frost giant Bill Berger, and each year we'd have to change up some way we were going to overpower, outwit, thwart the frost giant into giving up the sun. So it took me having to retire to get out of doing that, and now newer, younger members of the Naturalist Department have done a fine job taking over, making it their own, and leaving me very happy to be sit home, resting my old bones by the fireplace. So I guess the main resource that we have in people to work with is the inborn, as Rachel Carson called it, the sense of wonder. The natural inborn curiosity and fascination for nature. Famous author, naturalist E.O. Wilson, modern day, termed it biophilia, the natural affinity we have for nature. And this is something that is, like I say, the resource that we tap into in sharing nature with children. It's something